So, what was my experience like on the day of my US Embassy visa interview? Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time I'm stopping by, please subscribe to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you guys have my heart. Thank you so much for supporting me. And in today's session, we're going to be looking at my US Embassy visa experience. So, what was my experience like on the day of my US Embassy visa interview? So, what was the experience like? That's what we're going to be looking at today. A lot of persons have different experiences on the day of their interview. So I'm going to share mine, like my personal experience, what transpired on that day. And then in the next video, I'm going to be talking about the questions that we were asked, those interview questions. So watch out for my next video, where I'll be telling us exactly what questions we were asked on the interview date. But today, I'm just going to be talking about the general experience that we had that day. So before now, we had been, asking, checking, getting some informations, and then we decided to go very early on our interview date. So on the day of our interview, we actually went very early. Yeah, our interview was scheduled for about 10 a.m. But before 8 a.m., we were actually at the interview at the embassy already. Yeah, so by 8 a.m., we were already seated at the embassy. So that means we left our hotel at about 7 or past 7. So we arrived very early, and then we waited briefly outside while waiting for us to be called. We also met with other persons who came for their interview on the same day. So while waiting, it's a very anxious day. You all know, especially for the persons that have had interview before, you know how that day is. So while waiting, we're also praying. We're praying for God's direction. We're praying for God to take the lead on this day. Mind you, this interview was not like, you don't know, you can't predict what is going to happen, right? So after waiting, the first group were called to come in, and the first group were the non-immigrants, like tourist visa. They were the first that were attended to. So they were called to come in, and they started the paper processing, document and everything. So we're still waiting. When they were done with the non-immigrants, they called us. We were immigrant visa applicants. So at first, they started with checking our document, requested for our international passport, which we presented, and some other documents which we presented. And after accessing the documents, that of my husband, that of my baby, they now told us to come in. Now that coming in is where you're being scanned. Now where we went for our visa interview, they have like a 2-block. So it means you have to pass from the first block to get to the second block. And without passing through the processing, the scanning and every other thing from the first block, you can't get to the second block. Yeah, so we were asked after documentation in the first point, we moved to the person that does the scanning, checking, asking for money, like asking for the money that you came in, you should remove it. So at that point, we were asked how much we came in with. So we removed the money that we came in with. We asked if we have any water, if we have any food or anything. Yeah, I actually went with water, I went with juice, and I went with some snacks because of my boy. So when we were asked about money, we removed the money that we came with, and then they asked us if we have water, if we have snacks, if we have any food. I now said yes, that we have that. So they said we should bring it out. I brought it out, and they said I should test the water. So I actually tested the water. I drank it, and that was it. They said, okay, cover the water with it. So they did not allow us to take the water from the first block to the second block. Yeah, so we couldn't take our water from the first block to the second block, even when I told them it was for my baby. So what they say is, if my baby needs water, we can come back and pick it, but we cannot go in with the water. So we dropped it there, and then we went inside. When we went inside, we had to start the second paper processing. Now at that point, if you do not have the required documents that is needed for that processing, that is the point where you're asked to go back and bring additional documents. So I was just praying, God, please take control, take control today. So we went to the person that was attending to us, and the person got our documents, our information, and brought a file. So these people already have your file and all the information that you submitted. So at no point should you try altering what you had submitted. So while filling your DS-260 form, you had submitted some documents, some information, your name, your father's name, where you come from, and the rest. On the day of interview, those information will be confirmed, right? From what you submitted on your DS-260 to what you're presenting on the interview date. Those information, they have the folder, they have your file, they have everything about you, and they will be confirming whatever information you're giving to them at that point. So if there are discrepancies, you would not even get to the point of having the interview. You would leave at that point. So some persons left, requested to bring more documents, additional documents, but then we proceeded from the point of assessing our documents finally to the interview. So when we were done with our document processing and the rest, we had to wait. Now we did not just have to wait, we have to process my son, because I had my son, or we had our son when we were already documentarily qualified. So at that point, we needed to add him. Now I am going to also make a separate video on the process of adding a dependent after you're documentarily qualified, the do's and don'ts. So watch out for that. So we waited for our turn for the consular to call us, and the consular called us when it was our turn. We went there, myself, my husband, and my son, and then the consular was asking us some question. Do you want to know the question that we were asked on that interview date? If you really want to know, then stay glued, as I'll be posting the next video talking about the questions that we encountered on that day, or the questions that the consular asked us, and how we handled or how we answered the questions. So see you in my next video, and thank you so much for supporting me.